You're gonna love this one. I know I'm gonna love it because holy, the propaganda behind this is just absolutely mind blowing. You know, it's one of the acids that has been eroding the foundation that was laid by people that are long dead and gone. Let's have a bit of coffee here. And it's everybody's favorite. It's feminism. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I love you. Thank you so much. And like, you know, more further definitions and background, like I've had, not a fixation, but, you know, obviously being a very stupid person, I've had nothing but time and information and the internet to really familiarize with this, with anything that I was interested in, and trying to figure out humanity and life in general, however I could, whichever way I could. Because again, as I've said in other videos, I was a social reject, ostracized and not accepted, and I've experienced existential depression for a very long time, because like that's what happens with academics and very intelligent people. Like if nobody listens to them, they usually end up committing suicide. That's the unfortunate truth. I'm not interested in doing that because I have a mission, I have a task and a purpose, and that's to share this information and the lessons that I've learned through example, through the military training that I received as a cadet, and my familiarity with the armed forces. This is my service as best I can, and it's free, so whatever. I understand the forces is completely strapped right now, and I'm not getting any funding from anywhere that I ask. And that's just unfortunate, because things need to change, and this is how we're going to change it. So, what I'm going to start with here, again, as I've said in some of the other videos where I'm outside, at Speaker's Tree, I'm doing shorter videos, and I'm talking about, Sue Johansson. So Sue Johansson was a lovely lady, absolute Canadian treasure. And, the best thing that, again, this is something else that was in the demographic. Anyways, no, it's not about the trades, but it was something about, since I'm looking at Sue Johansson here. She was born in 1930 and was a Canadian sex educator, public speaker, and registered nurse. And she's been of great influence upon my ideas and my conceptions of human sexuality. And well, that's interesting. Her great uncle was Lord Baden-Powell. So that's the Lord Baden-Powell. Let's see. As the founder and first chief scout of the worldwide scout movement, and founder with his sisters Agnes and of the worldwide Girl Guide Girl Scout movement. Baden-Powell authored the first edition of the seminal work Scouting for Boys, which was an inspiration for the scout movement. And so if you didn't know, scouting in some ways was more, or in the past, a paramilitary group to select and train boys for public service and for the military. So a lot of people don't know that, but that's the truth of the matter. And same with brownies. Brownies was to train people in English tradition. to become public servants. You know, the road to high status from being, you know, having absolutely nothing through education. Because education in the past used to be the marker of status. But, you know, and the same with skills in the trades, right? The higher up, the more, you know, as it's supposed to be in the society in North America, as is the idealism anyway, that, you know, the more that you accomplish, the more that you should earn, right? The more that you do for others, the more that you should have wealth. Not this self-serving, narcissistic, celebrity culture, influencer, you know, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. Hey, I'm an entrepreneur. And you're just scamming people left, right, and center with these promotion accounts and whatever else it's on Instagram right now, asking for money for bots and followers, when that just ain't right, man. It just ain't right. You know, so many scams. NFTs, I believe, are a scam. I'm not behind them. You know, because the art is so easily copied and corrupted. Just tangents here. But anyways, yeah. So she was an Ontario, Sue Johansson, born Susan Powell to Wilfred Powell, a decorated British war hero, and an affluent Ontario-born Irish Protestant mother, Ethel Bell. Johnson attended nursing school in Saint Boniface, Hôpital en Winnipeg. She graduated as a registered nurse. Soon after, she married a Swedish-Canadian electrician named Eeyore Johansson. Yeah. They had 3 children, Carol, Eric, and Jane. The family moved to North York, where Johansson kept house and raised her children. In 1970, Johansson opened a birth control clinic in Don Mills High School, the first of its kind in Canada. She worked there as a coordinator for 18 years. And education at the Toronto Institute of Human Relations, University of Toronto Family Planning, and the University of Michigan Human Sexuality, graduating as a counselor and sex educator. So it goes on. This is a Wikipedia. If you want more information, go to the source material. She was on what was it? Bravo or something like that. Channel 39 here in London, with the cable. Going forward, Johnson first achieved popularity as a sex educator and therapist, hosting her own show on rock radio station Q107 during the 1980s. The show, entitled Sunday Night Sex Show, transitioned to do a TV talk show of the same name on the community television Rogers TV in 1985. A women's television network. Interesting. In 1996, it became a national show on the Women's Television Network, and it ended in 2005. Oxygen, etc., etc., etc. Going forward, you know, Christianity is about sex positivity, right? God wants us, if I'm going to go by these teachings, God wants us to have children. He wants us to go forth and be bountiful, right? Or go forth and multiply, whatever it is. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. You know, shoot me for not reading my Bible all the time. Christianity is a practice. It's not a religion. You know, without actions, without good works, then in my opinion, you're not a good Christian. You're just proselytizing. You're just talking about it, and you know, going in ad infinitum with the theology and so forth. You know, or any degree of any like huge extreme degree of mysticism. I'm not completely on board with. You know, the rituals and so on and stuff like that. You know, you have to do something about the body, right? The body of Christ, which is ourselves. Moving forward, you know, you're not supposed to, there's many different interpretations of the text and throughout history. So it's okay to have a difference of opinions, and we should, in a free and open society, we should be able to have discourses. Hence why I'm doing these videos. Okay. The next point was that Sue married a tradesman, And historically, universities were places, again, of attaining status and knowledge for the upper crust. All right, people that had the time to step away from the farm implements and had the resources because they came from, middle class families or a bit higher. They weren't the service people, like the maids and the butlers and the farm people and the gardeners and so on and so forth within English society, the blacksmiths, whatever else, it's like landlords and lords and ladies, and then serfs. Yeah. So the article that I remember reading was recent. It was about how, well, it had to do with the trend in that women within the past, well, especially within the past 20 to 30 years. Again, this is from memory. I want you to search this, to seek this knowledge out. The education system is more, or as it's been said before, is more towards women than it is to men, and men started falling behind in graduation rates and university attendance. But again, falling back to a previous point, university in the past was a place for education, but also to meet someone, right, and get together with the upper crust, join families, and then rise to their occasion and their place in society. Because Protestants, Catholics, Anglicans all believe in service, or the Protestant work ethic. Okay, so moving forward from Sue, I took a human sexuality course at Fanshawe for university. Well, because again, I got rejected from every art school in the country after leaving Trent, and because I wanted to get a BFA, I wanted a Bachelor of Fine Arts, just so that I felt that was required in this day and age to have credibility as an artist, and to make connections and maybe meet someone. Okay, moving on. So as far as like religion or Christianity, there's I grew up in a Pentecostal church in Barrie, and obviously there's a community is a huge aspect of Christianity in North America, and other places too. Like the church is the community, right? It is the house in which things are built, right? It's the Church of St. Peter. So that's St. Peter's Basilica. Upon the rock on which I stand, right, shall not be shifting sand. And I shall build the church upon you. Now, focused on the family, obviously the mission is in the very namesake. And I'm looking at marriage here. The resources, false intimacy, the first 5 years, how to stay in love, inviting God into your dating relationships. These are all recent articles. Dealing with the past when you're remarried. Is remarrying a step in the right direction? Terminal illness, betrayal of an affair, being transparent, and how to deal with mismatched libidos, etc. So, supporting what I have to say, you know, Christianity is about positive relationships, not just, you know, not just with God, but with each other in a family or in a marriage. And this is completely, you know, in opposition to what feminism became. Because okay, so you want to talk about where feminism started. So the beginning is, I'll put this in. So this is off of Google, and you need to go to the original text. You can't trust everything that you see on the internet. Let's go to the Canadian Encyclopedia. History of the movement. 4 periods, they say. So first feminist wave lasted in the from the mid-19th to early 20th century. This movement is sometimes referred to as women's suffrage, because the important goal of these feminists was to give women the right to vote and to be elected to political office. These feminist activists, often called suffragists or suffragettes, also focused on subjects like married women's property rights, child custody, and citizenship. Many of these early feminists can also be described as maternal feminists. They argue that women had special responsibilities as mothers of the nation and were therefore more naturally suited to take care of matters regarding childcare and education. In Canada, the most prominent first-wave feminists were the famous 5, including Emily Murphy, Henrietta Edwards, Nellie McClung, Louise McKinley, and Irene Parley. Now, I know someone here in London that's a university professor, and she did a lot of research on this. So all the credit to her, and she knows who she is. She does, this is a contract lecturer at Western. Or was. Okay, and then we'll get into the second wave, stuff like that. Second feminist wave was mainly active from 1960 to the 1980s in something called the women's movement. Feminists in this time period, like Canadians Teresa Casgrain and Doris Anderson, generally concentrated on subjects like equal pay for equal work, access to birth control and abortion, and ending gender discrimination. The movement's most well-known slogan was "The personal is political," meaning that all people's social and political lives are intertwined and cannot be separated. Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, is seen as one of the key publications of this wave and marked the start of second-wave feminism in North America. This book exposed the unhappiness and lack of fulfillment that many women homemakers felt in the 1950s because of restrictive gender roles. You know, there's historical context to that because of the Second World War. You know, I'm not going to get too deep into it. I want to keep this short and sweet. Some individuals have critiqued second-wave feminists because, particularly in North America, the movement was not inclusive. Instead, the movement was dominated by white middle-class women who argued that all women are united as sisters. This erased the diverse kinds of oppression that many individuals faced. As a result, many working-class women, indigenous, black, and women of color, queer, trans, oh, good lord, gender non-conforming and non-binary folks, also queer culture, and women with disabilities formed their own feminist organizations. They did so both to fight for their rights and to create solidarity in their own communities, which were excluded by mainstream feminism. Many feminists outside of North America and Europe, including indigenous feminists in Canada like Lee Maracle, okay, it's been a long time since I've even looked at any of this stuff because it's so angering. It's so angering. So frustrating. Also critiqued second-wave feminists for its emphasis on the idea that women and men must necessarily be equal, arguing instead that it was important to recognize that men and women contribute to society equally, but in different ways. And then we get into the third wave. fourth wave. Oh goodness, Lord, goodness. Yeah, you know, the 90s are often seen as the dividing line between second and third wave feminism. Origins of third wave feminism are often connected to the riot girl feminist punk subculture in the United States. The subculture emerged in response to criticisms of second wave feminism around the exclusion of radicalized and marginalized individuals. Third wave feminists worked deliberately to be inclusive. Major third wave organizations like Women's Legal Education and Action Fund concentrated on subjects like sexual liberation, reclaiming derogatory words, and violence against women. One of the key thinkers in this wave was Kimberly Crenshaw, who coined the term intersectionality to describe the ways in which different aspects of identity and oppression intersect and interact. Intersectionality is so insufferable. It's so insufferable. You know, this fixation on power and power structures and domination and the patriarchy and all this. Like this is all stuff that other people have said before on YouTube as critiques. It's just like, what are you expecting? You know what happens in a power vacuum? Someone else comes in and takes advantage of the situation and then completely destroys anything that you had built. I'm not gonna follow through with this. Okay, so skipping some things, a bit more cherry picking. If you wanna come after me for that, I'm just reading off of the website here from the Canadian Encyclopedia. Origins of the concept of intersectionality. The roots of intersectionality lie in post-enslavement America. Thinkers like W.E.B. Du Bois, the first African American to receive PhD from Harvard, discussed the complexity of domination systems using the example of life experiences of African Americans. Other works, such as Women, Race, and Class, paved the way for the development of the theory of intersectionality. Initially, the theory of intersectionality was intended to analyze the oppression of Black American women by taking a critical approach to white feminism. There are points, acknowledgement that it did start out of white culture or like Caucasian culture, but English culture, North American, that's the way it should be said. We should not be focusing, in my opinion, on the color of the skin. To use racial goalposts to define a culture is frankly insulting. Okay, so criticisms. And then it gets into Marxism. Good Lord. Okay. We're gonna leave that one alone. You guys can read this if you really want to. I don't have time for this anymore. I really don't, because it gets into the fourth wave, and then it gets into sexual harassment, assault, and rape culture, and it's very subjectivity. So basically, within philosophy and in intellectual thought, you have objective and subjective ethics and morals, as defined by logic, but this is. It takes 3 generations from the wealth to ruin, right? from something that is worth doing to something that's completely destroyed. And the way that goes with wealth is that the first generation earns it, the second generation spends it, and then the third generation has absolutely nothing, right? And I'm very much on the suffragette or the second wave feminist idealism, because there wasn't any assaults on men. There wasn't any insulting. There wasn't any kind of attempt to dominate male identity. That's the gist of it. And then it gets into this transgender stuff and this gender identity and fixation upon idiosyncratic, esoteric bullshit. Honestly, right? Because it becomes more about emotional manipulation and trying to find ways to tear down the power structure. Oh yeah, we're gonna change the world, but we're gonna do it from Tumblr. Slacktivism, yay! Let's go and assault somebody in public and throw eggs on them. It'll be great. Oh, thanks for the money, by the way. Oh, now I don't have to work. This is awesome. All I gotta do is yell in front of a camera about how men are pigs and are disgusting. And they deserve to die. They should be our slaves in the trades. Like they want to be. They just build things. Go get me my purse. Thank you. Psychopaths, female psychopaths exist, and they infiltrate these movements. And there's also other organizations that infiltrate these social movements to disrupt them, because there's a certain point at which they become too disruptive to the entire culture, and they need to be taken down. They need to be put in their place. Because when you have too many special interests, if I'm going to go by John Stuart Mill's, utilitarianism, right? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, which is very much true, right? If we're going to live in a democracy, then the majority rules, whether you like it or not. And, as by definition, Canada is not a democracy. It's a constitutional monarchy, which means it's authoritarian. It's authoritarian, right? Let's close that. So since I was talking about Tumblr feminism, oh my goodness, Urban Dictionary, right? This falls in line with like Reddit feminism and like Twitter, where they're just not to tear any of my previous relationships and their ideas apart, but frankly they need to be, because of the propaganda. The propaganda always works on young people first, and then women, if not young women, and removing the power of a woman from the woman. Right, and giving it to a figurehead, or to a grand idealism, and instead of doing good works and activism out in the community that is more than just showing up for a march and showing up for a protest. Right, Tumblr feminism. The school of feminism thought that instead of fighting for gender equality, is more concerned with the seeming liberal and feminist and not actually being feminist. This is often achieved through strict internet doctrine and openly ostracizing those who do not agree with them. One other symptom of Tumblr feminism is that when asked to explain their opinions, sufferers will get angry and storm off rather than actually answering the question. Similar words and ideas include feminist Nazi, fringe feminist, and femiventing. Origin. The term Tumblr feminism derives from the social media site Tumblr, in which one of the major gathering places of those with such beliefs. However, Tumblr is not the only site that this phenomenon is present, and likewise, feminists on Tumblr are true. Not all feminists on Tumblr are true feminists. Tumblr feminists. So this falls in line with like there's never been the Marxism thing. There's never been true communism, which is if you actually read the text, it's about trade unions. It's not about forming governments. Absolutely. Now, before I get into the extremes, there's a couple of extremist feminists that I don't like so much. Like Andrea Dworkin. I really concentrate on her because she went off the handle because obviously she was sexually assaulted. Yeah, and let's see, Control F. Okay, biography. Oh, let's just do the prefix here on the front end. Anti-pornography, anti-prostitution, feminism. Some of it I agree with. I do. I don't like pornography. I don't like the fact that women, especially now, with the easy access to social media, that anyone can be a cam whore, and then it's even easier to enable the narcissistic, psychopathic behavior that some women can lean towards. Empowered by this, the subjectivity of this grievance feminism, this postmodern wishy-washy bullshit. Again, going by opinion more than facts. In this video, I'm going to say this now. This video is more of an opinion piece than factual, because I just don't have time for this anymore. It's very frustrating, and it completely destroyed so many people. That's the gist. That's the fact of the matter. Tumblr, not Tumblr, but just this vicious, toxic cocktail of ideology, birth control, and antidepressants. And look at where we are now. In 2023, it's the current year. Okay, Andrea Dworkin was an American radical feminist writer and activist known for her best analysis of pornography. Her feminist writings began in 1974, spanned 30 years. They are found in a dozen solo works, 9 books of nonfiction, 2 novels, and a collection of short stories. Another 3 volumes were co-written and coded with U.S. constitutional law professor and feminist activist Catherine A. McKinnon. The central objective of Dworkin's work is analyzing Western society, culture, and politics through the prism of men's sexual violence against women in a patriarchal context. She wrote on a wide range of topics, including the lives of Joan of Arc, Margaret Papandreou, Nicole Brown Simpson, and she analyzed the literature of Charlotte Bronte, Jean Rhys, Leo Tolstoy, Kobo Abe, Tennessee Williams, James Baldwin, and Isaac Bashevis Singer. She brought her own radical feminist perspective to her examination of the subjects historically written or described from men's point of view, including fairy tales, homosexuality, lesbianism, virginity, anti-Semitism, the State of Israel, the Holocaust, biological superiority, and racism. She interrogated premises underlying concepts such as freedom of the press and civil liberties. She theorized the sexual politics of intelligence, fear, courage, and integrity. She described a male supremacist political ideology manifesting in and constituted by rape, battery, prostitution, and pornography. I can't even read this stuff. I don't want to do it anymore. Another person that, I've taken some from, but not completely, is Camille Pagilla. So these women were of a certain era. Okay, so she was born in 1947, and she's still alive, thankfully. But people that came home from the Second World War just didn't, they're talking. So Dworkin is talking about the violence, and she's not understanding or at least from my point of view, not understanding the historical context. And PTSD or burnout was not very well understood. They called it shell shock or something like that. Nervous breakdowns. The conception of the psychotherapy was very different. They didn't have the same amount of information, and people didn't talk about their problems. They just moved on. They're like, well, shit happens, let's keep moving. That's exactly their attitude of my grandparents. They're like, well, you're here, aren't you? So let's keep going. Like just like that. Okay, so talking about Pagilla, beginning at Bennington College, who hired her in part thanks to a recommendation from Harold Bloom. At Bennington, she befriended the philosopher James Fessenden, who first taught there in the same semester. Through her studies of classics and the scholarly works of Jane Ellen Harrison, James George Frazer, Eric Newman, and others, Pagilla developed a theory of sexual history that contradicted a number of ideas fashionable at the time, hence her criticisms of Marija Gimbutas, Carolyn Highburn, Kate Milnet, and others. She laid out her ideas on matriarchy, androgyny, homosexuality, sadomasochism, and other topics in her Yale PhD thesis, Sexual Personae, the Androgyny in Literature and Art, which she defended in 1974. In September 1976, she gave a public lecture drawing on that dissertation, in which she discussed Edmund Spenser's The Faerie Queene, followed by remarks on Diana Ross, Gracie Ellen, Yul Brynner, and Stéphane Audrin. Pagilla wrote that she nearly came to blows with the founding members of the Women's Studies program at the State University of New York at Albany when they categorically denied that hormones influence human experience of behavior. See, this is why I like her, is because gender is not performative. It's not. It's biological. Sex is gender, and the acts that which we do. Okay, so just missing something there. Sex and gender are the same thing, and the actions in which we take are not defined by the gender or the roles. Right? Is too much concentration on sexual performance or performatives in the reproduction. Like it's an obsession. It's a fixation, and it needs to be done away with. Like, bye-bye. Enough of that. I don't have time for that anymore. Because the thing is that, turbo lesbians got into these things, and because they were victims of sexual assault or something along those lines, because that's usually, if I said this in another video, which is another controversial thing, is that straight people reproduce by procreation, and gay people and queer people reproduce by molestation. So there's always something historical in their past by which some traumatic event caused them to question their very sexual identity. And that's the truth of the matter, whether you like it or not. I'm standing by that. Okay, what was I saying further here? You get into androgyny and stuff like that, okay, so I've heard this before, and it's that the shame of the mother gets passed on to the daughter. It's the same thing as the sins of the father get passed on to the son. So women use shame to, or used to fashion their daughters into the women that they felt were desirable for men, and vice versa. Not men not through shame, but through verbal examination. Let's put it like that, or cross-examination. Because the culture used to be very different in that you could burn someone, openly for whatever reason, and then it became an offense and offending. And I always felt that, since I'm obsessed with rules and procedures and stuff like that, information, on the one side of my brain here, this side of the brain rather than this one going for the creativity. I'm a robot. Okay, so let's move on to our reviews on feminism. Again, Wikipedia, don't believe all of it. This is just a good starting point. I don't even want to read it. I don't want to read it. No. I'm just getting so tired of this stuff. IWDA I have open here. IWA is a proudly feminist organization. Oh my goodness. And there's this, I'm looking at Rosie the Riveter, and that propaganda, that was intended for a specific point in time where they needed to bring women into the workforce, and women weren't allowed into the military. Women were performing support roles, and men were on the front lines in the combat, which, biologically speaking, a woman does not have the same upper body strength. And, if you're going to talk about the military, combat requires a lot of upper body strength in order to survive. It's just the fact of the matter. And men are physically stronger in that capacity. A man who doesn't exercise versus a woman who does will still overpower her. That's the biological dimorphism, the physiological nature. And if you want to go even further, there was before birth control, there was a personal responsibility as to, who the woman was going to select and vice versa. There was more equality before birth control than there is after the fact, because birth control plays into the very worst of human behavior by allowing women to, again, controversial as I'm going to be, plays into female hypergamy and, female psychopathy and domination and sadomasochism and so on and so forth, which I don't agree with. This stuff, like, I'm looking at it and it's very appealing, and it just looks like grooming. It just looks like, Marxist propaganda. I can't stand it anymore. It's seriously annoying, and I couldn't stand it, like, when I wrote this poem that I'm going to get into, like, back in 2008, because it's just so disappointing. It is just so disappointing, because the corruption that happened from the beginning through to the third generation, especially with the social media. No, wait, Mom. You can't tell me what it's about. I'm not having any kids. Screw that. White men are the worst. They're the reason patriarchy has to go. This old boys club, it's exclusive. They won't let us in. So we're gonna tear it all down with social justice. We're gonna make sure that they will never find any woman in their lives, and they won't be able to mate, and then we'll wipe them out. It'll be perfect. We'll make the society in our matriarchal idealism, and then everybody will be free. Everyone will be free and equal, just like we intended. This other one is from apa.org. Feminism needs more advancing and less disparaging. It's from 2006. I don't even want to read it. Grand Psych. 2006 from, what's it? 2006, the month of 9, so September. Okay, so I'm going to summarize this because honestly, I can't go on about this longer than an hour. It's just so exhausting, because the result that we're in now is, demographic and cultural suicide, and the opportunity, as I've said before, the power vacuum with immigration, has been used and abused to introduce a new slave class, into a Ponzi scheme of absolute authoritarian capitalism. Excuse me. Without balance, and the goalposts keep shifting as to what is what, and nobody can seem to agree on anything anymore, because we're all in our own individual reality prisons and echo chambers, and the algorithms only feed you what you want, as defined by your previous watchings and your previous interests and whatever information you put into your profiles, and so on and so forth. Like, the internet at this point isn't real, right? A book is real, right? It is tactile. You can open it anytime you want. It doesn't require a battery, and you can take it anywhere you want. Just because it's more convenient doesn't mean it's better. Okay, so this is Disillusion F, and I wrote this, I published it on October 24th, 2008. If you want to read it and some of my other stuff, this is from my DeviantArt, which is deviantart.com/automatic. And I was using DeviantArt from an early adoption as an online gallery. And I changed over to Tumblr soon after meeting a special lady, because I found that it was very attractive. And the connotation with DeviantArt is more anime, and honestly, there's a lot of pornography here on DeviantArt that's masked as artistic nudes and stuff like that. And then there's a lot of children put their art up on here. This is where it all begins for a lot of people with their creativity, and now I see it. It's kind of a if I'm going to go further with this tangent, it became a battlegrounds, a feeding frenzy for pedophilia, or just certain fixations, which I really don't want to talk about in this video. Just so exhausting, so exhausting. Humanity is so weird. It is so weird. Anyways, degenerate, absolutely degenerate. Like this stuff. Like if I'm gonna rant further, this is the kind of stuff that led to the Second World War, because of the prevalence of transgenderism, the excess of Weimar Germany, and the disparity of social classes in that time, in that country, versus more cultural context, the isolationism of the United States in the Roaring 20s and then the Dirty 30s because of what the 1929 stock market crash. Yeah, and then you had the New Deal. In which, okay, so that's by Roosevelt. The New Deal was a series of programs, public work projects, financial reforms, and regulations enacted by Roosevelt in the United States between 1933 and 1939. Okay, so I'm going to get into this now. This is Disillusion F. Liberate me, burn the bra, set the bosom free, drop the protest, pick up the pole, faking orgasms for control. Skin is sexy, sexy is the goal. Failure of a following, ignoring nature's role. Mothers, daughters, sisters, lusting masculine, waxing pathetic. Cure not the power of birth, only cancer of the girth. Rotting from the inside, cut the loss and fade away. Disillusion and dismay. Identity of crisis, crisis and bleeding. Self-loathing is defeating. Warhol wasn't crazy, just shot by one. Let crazy do the teachings. Sociopathic Nazis without feelings. Wonder Woman, looking for a boy. Become the monster, female chauvinist pig. Chastise, subjugate, and marginalize. It's the men's fault. That's the tool. Problems in plain sight. Wasn't the point of fighting. Ego made the fool. Mother courage, where did you go? Dear flower, wilted away, bloomed long ago. Petals falling, pollen failing, to start a new endeavor. This is what you asked for. This is what you have. There is no fourth wave. Abolished morning, afternoon nightmare. That's the end of it. Because if you're watching this as a woman, I do care about you. I wouldn't be here without one, and without my family. And enough is enough. We need to end the propaganda. We need to put this to bed. Too many men are committing suicide. And the inequality went from one end of the spectrum to the other. And it needs to come back to a center. All these ideas, I don't want to follow the pattern of history and burn all this stuff, all this material. It's something that needs to be taught, right? Because what did Hitler do? He burned it all. He burned all the deviant art. He burned all of the degenerate art and the degenerate works and transgenderism and stuff like that. But I can't follow those same mistakes, because it just killing people and whatnot. It just induces further conflicts. Okay. So again, I wrote that in 2008. And if you don't know this already, Nazi is National Socialist. That's the very definition of Nazi. A fascist is it's fiscally based, central planning, or just like how communism is entirely central planning. Fascism is more towards fiscal planning. There's a big difference between the two. So when people throw these terms around, and they don't know what they're saying because they're not educated, they just want an emotional response, then they're the problem. And we need to get together on this and fix it, because the propaganda is just so strong. It's so strong. You know, with the somebody that benefited, at least one of the children of the doctors that helped invent and test birth control, lives here in London. You know, he's a very rich man, and he gives back to the community. I got no issues with him. You know, he does philanthropy and so forth. But the price at which the culture is paid for yielding to little women that get into positions of power and want to power trip because they never had power before, because that's the psychology, you know, the exactment of revenge, which is absolutely disgusting, right? If you've never been in a position of power and you get to that, and it's just like, you know, I'm gonna show people who's boss out of insecurity and so forth, or out of emotional or sexual manipulation, in order to gain something that would be conceived as power. That's not power. That's usury.